Deep in the heart of the jungle, where man is only a visitor, nature rules with unshaken power. There are laws here, ancient, unspoken, and unbreakable. But what happens when those laws are ignored? A group of adventurers pushes through the dense foliage, their laughter echoing unnaturally in the quiet wilderness. "Man, this place is unreal! Untouched paradise!" one of them exclaims, shoving aside thick vines. Another grins, holding up a phone. "Yeah, until we make it go viral. Imagine the views on this." A third chuckles as he pulls out a pocket knife, carving his initials into the trunk of a towering tree. "First, we gotta show people what they're missing. Let's give them a real adventure." Nearby, another kicks over a termite mound, watching the tiny creatures scatter. "Yeah, and maybe clean this place up while we're at it." "What a mess," he jokes. The fifth adventurer rolls his eyes, crunching a plastic wrapper in his fist, before tossing it carelessly onto the ground. "Pfft, who cares? It's just bugs. This place has enough of them." But the jungle is never truly empty. Someone is watching. A deep, guttural breath lingers just beyond the trees, unheard by the reckless intruders. One of them pauses mid-step, eyes narrowing as he scans the thick foliage. "Did you hear that?" Another grins, picking up a small rock and hurling it into the shadows. "Relax, it's probably just a monkey. Or maybe Bigfoot." The jungle holds its breath, the once lively chatter of birds and insects now eerily silent. The trees seem to close in tighter, the air thick with something unseen. The jungle has its own guardians, and those who disturb them must face the consequences. The fading light casts long shadows across the jungle floor as the group trudges forward, their boots sinking into the damp earth. The air grows heavier, thick with the scent of moss and distant rain. A faint rustling stirs in the trees above, but none of them look up. "You guys believe in all those jungle legends?" one of them asks, smirking as he steps over a fallen log. The guide, an older man with weathered skin and watchful eyes, stops abruptly. His gaze lingers on the towering trees ahead. "Legends?" he murmurs. "No, but warnings? Warnings are real." The group exchanges amused glances. "Come on, you don't actually think some monster is lurking out here, do you?" one of them scoffs. The guide doesn't answer right away. Instead, he bends down, tracing a massive footprint embedded deep in the mud, larger than any human's, too wide for a bear. "This is his home," the guide says finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "The protector of the jungle. He doesn't take kindly to trespassers." One of the adventurers snorts. "So what, there's a big ape that runs this place?" He shakes his head, amused. "You're saying we should be scared of a gorilla?" Another one chuckles, pulling out his phone. "Maybe we should find him, get some real footage, think about the views." The guide stands, his face unreadable. "You don't find him. He finds you." A sudden gust of wind rattles the branches, and for the first time, the jungle feels different. The vibrant sounds of birds and insects have vanished. A suffocating silence presses in around them. The guide takes a slow step back. "We should leave." His words are calm, but his eyes betray something else. Urgency. Fear. The adventurers hesitate, glancing at one another. Then, from deep within the jungle, a low, guttural rumble vibrates through the trees. A sound so deep it rattles their bones. Something is watching, and it is not pleased. The group presses on, their confidence wavering as the jungle's silence stretches unnaturally. The absence of chirping birds and buzzing insects leaves only the sound of their footsteps, crunching against damp leaves. One of them exhales sharply, shaking his head. "Okay, this is getting weird. Why is it so quiet all of a sudden?" Another laughs, though it's forced. "Maybe the jungle just doesn't like us." He kicks at a fallen branch, sending it skidding across the path. A loud snap echoes through the trees. Everyone freezes. Their eyes dart toward the thick undergrowth, where someone, moves just out of sight. A flash of dark fur, impossibly large, vanishes between the trees. "Did you see that?" one of them whispers. Another tightens his grip on the camera slung over his shoulder. It was probably just a deep, resonating grunt cuts through the air, stopping them cold. The guide, standing a few steps ahead, turns sharply. His face has lost its usual calm. "I told you," he says under his breath, his voice barely above a whisper. "You don't belong here." The adventurers exchange uneasy glances. One of them shakes off the fear, forcing a grin. "Relax, man. We're fine. It's just some big animal." He pulls out his phone, flicking on the flashlight. The beam cuts through the darkness, landing on a tree with deep claw marks gouged into its bark. Fresh. Too fresh. Another snap, this time closer. The undergrowth sways as something moves toward them. "Okay, that's not normal," one of them mutters, stepping back. A nervous chuckle escapes from another. "Maybe we should—" Then, from the shadows, a powerful sound erupts. A thunderous chest beat, so loud it feels like the earth itself is shaking. The jungle, once eerily still, now pulses with something primal. The guide inhales sharply. "He's giving you a warning," he murmurs. The group stands frozen, their earlier arrogance crumbling. One of them swallows hard. "And what happens if we don't listen?" The guide doesn't answer. He doesn't have to, because from the darkness, two massive golden eyes appear, locking onto them with an intelligence far beyond that of a simple beast. The guardian of the jungle has arrived, and his patience is running out. The jungle erupts into chaos. A powerful roar tears through the air, shaking the very ground beneath them. The adventurers stumble back, their eyes wide with terror as the undergrowth trembles. A massive shadow moves just beyond the trees, circling them like a predator sizing up its prey. "Run!" someone whispers, but their feet refuse to move. The first to react is the guide. "Don't," he warns, his voice low and urgent. "If you run, he will chase." His words barely register before another deafening grunt echoes through the trees, followed by the sound of something heavy crashing through the branches. Leaves rain down around them as the guardian of the jungle steps forward. Towering over them, the silverback gorilla is a sight of raw, untamed power. His thick muscles ripple beneath dark fur, his breath slow and measured, nostrils flaring. He doesn't charge. Not yet. Instead, he watches, assessing them with piercing golden eyes. A final warning. One of the adventurers, shaking, slowly reaches for his camera. The moment he lifts it, the gorilla slams his fists into the ground with a force that sends vibrations through the earth. The sound alone is enough to make them flinch. "Stop!" the guide hisses. "Show respect!" But one of them panics. Without thinking, he turns and bolts into the trees. The moment his foot hits the ground in retreat, the jungle explodes. A flash of black fur, a burst of movement so fast it's almost impossible to process. The silverback lunges. A scream pierces the air, then silence. The others remain frozen, eyes darting wildly. "Where is he?" one of them gasps, spinning in circles. The jungle offers no answer. The trees sway as if something massive has passed through, but no sound follows. Just a hollow, suffocating stillness. The guide exhales shakily. "You were warned," he mutters. His voice is heavy, filled with something more than fear, understanding. He looks toward the shadows where the gorilla vanished, as if waiting for judgment. Then, finally, from the darkness, a figure emerges. The missing adventurer stumbles forward, eyes wide, breath ragged. His face is pale, his hands trembling. He says nothing, just stands there, visibly shaken, as if he has seen something he cannot explain. The others rush to him, but he barely acknowledges them. The guide steps forward and lowers his head slightly, a gesture of humility, of understanding. The gorilla watches for a long moment before exhaling deeply, then turns and disappears back into the jungle without a sound. The message is clear. This is his world. They were merely guests, and they will not be warned again. The jungle remains eerily silent as the group gathers themselves, their breaths uneven, their hearts still pounding from the encounter. No one speaks at first. The weight of what just happened lingers in the air, thick and undeniable. The adventurer who ran stands motionless, his face pale, his hands shaking. His eyes are distant, unfocused, as if he has glimpsed something beyond human understanding. One of them finally places a hand on his shoulder. What happened to you? The man swallows hard, struggling to form words. I don't know, he could have... But he didn't. His voice cracks, and he falls silent. The guide watches him carefully before turning to the rest of the group. You were given mercy, he says firmly. That does not happen twice. The weight of his words settles over them. The earlier arrogance, the careless jokes, the laughter, it all feels like a distant memory now. One of the adventurers shifts uncomfortably. We shouldn't have come here. Another nods slowly, rubbing the back of his neck. We disrespected this place. We disrespected him. The jungle remains still, as if waiting for their realization to fully sink in. The guide gives a small nod of approval. Now you understand. He turns and starts walking back the way they came. This time, no one argues. No one lingers for more footage. Without a word, they follow. The journey back feels different. The jungle, though unchanged, seems to watch them with different eyes. The heavy, oppressive tension has lifted, but an unspoken understanding lingers. This place is not theirs. It never was, and it never will be. As they reach the edge of the jungle, the guide stops and looks back one last time. The others do the same. There, hidden between the dense leaves, a pair of golden eyes glows faintly in the fading light, watching, waiting. A silent reminder that respect is not optional. It is demanded. The adventurers say nothing. They simply turn away, stepping back into the world they came from, forever changed by the lesson they were lucky enough to survive. Days later, the adventurers sit together in silence, the glow of the campfire flickering against their faces. The once loud conversations, the excitement of their journey, all of it feels distant now. The jungle had given them more than an adventure. It had given them a warning. One of them absently turns a stick in the fire, his eyes lost in thought. We could have died out there, he murmurs. Another nods slowly. Yeah, but we didn't. The man who had run, who had come face to face with the guardian, exhales shakily. He let me go, he finally says. He had every reason not to, but he did. His voice is soft, filled with something unfamiliar, humility. One of them pulls out his phone, scrolling through the footage they managed to capture before everything went wrong. He hesitates, staring at the screen. Are we really gonna post this? He asks. For once, no one jumps at the opportunity. No one jokes about the views, the fame, the attention. The weight of their experience is too heavy for that now. Finally, the guide, who had been silent all this time, speaks. This isn't a story about adventure, he says. It's a story about respect. He looks at each of them, his voice calm but firm. If you share this, make sure people learn from it, not just watch it. A long silence follows. Then, one of them presses a button, deleting the footage. Some things aren't meant for entertainment, he mutters. The group nods in agreement, their minds still replaying the golden eyes watching them from the shadows. The earth-shaking warning of the silverback's fists. They had entered the jungle seeking a thrill, a story to tell. But what they found was something far greater, a lesson. As the fire crackles and the night deepens, the jungle remains a distant silhouette against the horizon. Silent, unyielding, eternal. It does not need to announce its power. It simply exists, knowing that those who enter must either respect it or face the consequences.